Nicole Spencer, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you are a master and have built your whole message around what you call authentic conversion, and I'm really excited to explore that with you today. But first, I want to introduce you, as I always do on this show. Will you tell me a story from a moment in your life that's defined who you are and how you're showing up in the world today? And then tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep this really short. So, back in 2008, I decided to leave. I was a teacher. I was teaching high school English. I decided to leave and pursue a master's degree in Holocaust and genocide studies. So I actually have a full 2-year master's degree in that. And as you might imagine, there's not a lot of demand for people with that degree. So after graduate school, I had moved to New York City and was trying to get a job with the UN or some other non-governmental organization, and was just not really having any luck as a young female who only spoke one language. And so I actually fell into personal training that way. I was like, well, I got to do something. And I always worked out. I'd been a dance teacher and a choreographer and a yoga instructor. And so I decided to go get certified to do personal training. And my plan was to keep applying for these jobs that I really wanted to do good work in the world. And lo and behold, I fell in love with the fitness industry. And really the choice to the fact that I didn't get those jobs that I wanted brought me through a really successful PT career in New York City, led me to opening, running and selling my own boot camp. And now for the past 5.5 years, business coaching, which is how I ended up sitting here talking to you. So the fact that I went and got this really obscure degree, couldn't get a job with it, is how I actually ended up in fitness business coaching, which is 100% where I'm supposed to be.
That's really cool. Was there ever kind of a leap of faith moment where it seemed like you really fell in love with it and went right for it? Was there ever a time where, because I know you were probably going for and applying for a lot of those jobs, and then it was just like, actually, I'm going to go for it.
With fitness?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say maybe not so much in like personal training. But when I decided to open my boot camp, I had just moved to this small little town in Southeast Georgia where I didn't know anybody. And anyone who I did tell my ideas to told me it was a terrible idea. People in that city were not interested in fitness. And I decided to do it anyway. And it worked out very, very well. And here we sit today.
And there's another crucial moment in your story that I'm really interested in and I want to hear more about. It's when you were doing a lot of personal training and you built a very successful business, but you said for the last 5 years, I believe, you've been coaching other people in how to build their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the fitness industry, as far as I've heard, this is a difficult thing in kind of health in general, but I think particularly in fitness, to make the transition from kind of coaching individuals to coaching other trainers. And was that challenging, or did that come naturally to you?
I have a degree in teaching. Like I've always been a teacher, so I don't know that it was hard. I think the hardest part for me was maybe like going from coaching boot camps. So my gym was a boot camp. So I'm very much an extrovert. I love people. I love like large groups of people. Maybe going back to like one-on-one coaching initially was the hardest part. But my first 3.5 years of doing business coaching, I was working for someone else. So I had kind of like the structure in place and some of the training. And then it had the experience of another company kind of backing me. So I think that helped. I would say it wasn't a really hard transition, especially because I fell in love with business more than fitness within the first few months of having my business. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of discoveries.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to discover what your next passion is going to be, and if it keeps creating these exponential results. That's going to be big. So tell me now, because I think this is where the authentic conversion comes in, and maybe this is really where you do well in coaching is kind of in these methods. What's your philosophy, and what are you really great at teaching, or what's key to what you do?
Yeah, so I really kind of look at my soul's purpose as being a connector and helping other people become better connectors. And I've had multiple businesses at this point, and my strength is organic growth, really through relationship building, through storytelling. And that's what I love to teach other people now. And so I think in a world where we're so funnel focused, or we're so focused on like Facebook ads and what can I say to get the sale or whatever, my whole methodology is really about showing up with the right message, building your brand and doing it in a way that's really authentic to the individual and growing based off of that. And so that's kind of the whole principle behind the authentic conversion. It's not just about marketing and sales. It's about how can I show up differently in the world in a way that actually helps me grow my business, make more money, and help more people.
Wow. So are there some core tenets to showing up differently in the world, or are there unexpected things that you teach that really apply to business? Where are you kind of working with people?
Yeah. So I guess in terms of like one of the big focuses I have is helping people build their brand through content. And so I don't think of branding how we used to think of branding as logos and colors and business names and websites. I think of branding as our ability to build a relationship with a large group of people that we've never met before. And so I teach people how to do that using their own values, using their personality, using their stories and their experiences, and how to turn all of that into content that not only reaches the right audience, it actually connects with them, it builds trust in a relationship, and it leads them through the process of becoming a client at some point. And I think one of the things also that makes my method unique is that it's a little bit, it's got more of a long-term mindset and a long-term strategy in place. So whereas many people who are teaching marketing and sales are focused on, okay, put the ad out or put the offer out, make the sale. My whole focus is get eyes on me, nurture people so well, give them so much value, give them more value than they've paid for in other programs. And eventually you'll present the right opportunity for them to become a client. So I have a very big picture mindset when it comes to growing my business. Making the sale on like immediately or on the front end or even in the first 6 months actually really isn't important to me because I'm so consistent with creating my value building, my brand building content that I have no issue filling my programs every single month, but without doing anything like that's a super hard sale. And that's basically what I teach my clients how to do as well.
So I like that a lot. And I have this sense of like there's kind of this yin and yang in the world of business where there's the very much technical sales driven good sales, a lot of the stuff that you just
Mhm.
described. And then the yin, which is, yeah, this content nurturing generosity. And
Mhm.
I think that there's a really interesting balance between these two. And even though I was telling you I work with people on a lot of the things that you were mentioning, like
Mhm.
ads and landing pages and good presentations, I encourage everybody I work with, and I've experienced personally, like a lot of this authentic growth as you describe. I've been doing it mainly through just connecting with people at events, and
Mhm.
it's like
Mhm.
making a lot of phone calls, it's collaborating with people, it's keeping in touch. But I think you're also mentioning kind of a bigger aspect of it with your branding. What kind of platforms are you sharing this message on? Because you mentioned you don't use a website, or maybe it's not your kind of main front page.
Yeah, I didn't have a website the first year of authentic conversion, and still to this day when people tell me, "Oh, I saw something on your website," I'm like, "How'd you even find it?" Because I don't promote my website at all. So really, and I think it's different for everybody. I think we need to be conscious of where our ideal clients are hanging out and spend our time there. But literally, the only platforms I use, Facebook is 90% of my social media. Instagram's probably the other 10%, and an email list. And that's essentially
You do
how
have
my
an email
business
list.
is
That
run.
was going to be my next question.
Email list is so important. Gotta have
Okay,
an
good.
email.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were going to say, I don't have an email list either.
No, that's where the
You
magic
were
happens.
gonna,
I
okay, good.
attract them on social media, and the conversions tend to happen from my email list, whether that's driving them to register for a free event or a webinar or just to book a call, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Most of the magic is, I'd say 70 to 80% of the magic is in the email list.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So are people, again, how are you converting a lot of these? Do you give away free offers or templates, or what converts this? And what does that system look like? We're still using landing pages and
Yeah. Mhm.
at least probably mobile optimized kind of design, and keeping it really simple for
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. So when I first started this business, this is literally what I did, and it got me to my first. It got me from startup to 15,000 in 6 months, a month. It start like 0 to 15K months within 6 months. I said, okay, I've done businesses before. What do I need? I was like, okay, I already have a social media following, just because I had already done business coaching. I'd been connected with people in the fitness industry for so long, that I'd kind of naturally built up a network without really the intention of ever having something to offer them. But then I did. But this is literally what I did. It got me my first 100 emails. And again, it was the launching pad for my entire business. I created 2 freebies. One was, actually a lead magnet that other people could use to grow their fitness bases. And one was some swipe file, like written content. And so I got on Facebook several times for each. And I was like, hey, I have this thing. If you want it, send me your email or put it in the comments. That's how I got my first 100 emails. Literally. And that's how I launched the entire business, which continued to grow. And now I still do kind of a similar function. So some of it is completely organic. I didn't start running paid ads until I had surpassed probably around 250,000 sales, within about a 6-month period of time. So I did start running ads, but actually my entire, even my ad strategy now is just driving people to a lead magnet, just to get them on my email list, get them in my Facebook group, give them so much value, nurture them, and then offer something like a free 5-day challenge, a free webinar. A lot of them will end up just reaching out to me kind of organically because they love my content, because it's very actionable and it helps them make money right away. So people do tend to like that as well. But that's kind of like the basics of how I do things. There's 5 things I do all the time. There's organic social media posting, like on my profile, email my list, I nurture my Facebook group, I run ads to my lead magnet, and I run webinars somewhat infrequently. And that's pretty much it.
What
The
kind of
rest
emails
happens
are
naturally.
you're sending? Just weekly emails?
I
Mm,
send usually 2 to 3 each week, but again, very actionable. I think that if it's not actionable, it's not very valuable. So I try to, the content I put out for free, my goal and my intention with it is always that this should be more valuable than something someone else is paying for, and that it should make my audience money for free.
mhm.
That's the intention. Yeah.
And do you plan that out in advance, or are you just kind of in the habit of sitting down and
Yeah.
creating those?
I'm an inspired action kind of person. So I don't really like, I know when I write my content, but I don't ever really know what it's going to be, until I sit down to write it. Or maybe like, the day before I've had a specific conversation or questions asked that make me think of the content, but I don't like go and write out a month's worth of content all at once.
And that applies to emails and social media and everything. So you're doing
Inspired
it
action is
live.
what I like to call it.
Doing it live. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. All
Mhm.
right. Um, now tell me, this is similar things. Are these the 5 principles you're teaching your students as well, or just do these
No,
things?
not necessarily. These are
Okay.
just kind of the things that I found are working for me right now. And of course, there are other things that I do periodically as well, like podcast interviews, or I hosted a summit earlier this year. There's kind of random things that I'll do every now and again, but that's kind of my core 5 that work for me personally. And part of it is because I've established a big network. I've had so much experience doing so many different things. But I think everyone has to find kind of what their groove is and what works for them.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. So I want to kind of go into more in general in talking about how to succeed as a fitness coach or as a fitness professional online. And could you tell me some of like the key differences between somebody who's successfully coached with you and somebody who hasn't heard of you ever and does the opposite, or at
Mhm.
least like, yeah, wouldn't be applying your special ideas?
Well, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people who want to do fitness coaching or health coaching online make is usually they've had some in-person training experience as well, and they'll try to take that and duplicate it online, but at a lower price point, which is actually what I did. I had an online weight loss coaching business as well, and I was working with a lot of people and not making very much money at it. So I teach my clients to structure their online business much differently, to where they are focused on selling a higher ticket signature offer. So it makes it much easier for them to grow and scale their businesses. It's very hard online without a huge following or very deep pockets to make any money selling programs that are 100 or 150 or $200 a month. So just my kind of approach to the system of online coaching, I would say, is different from a lot of what I see out there on the market. Um, and that's the primary thing. And I think just, in terms of like the people I coach, what makes those, I have like some pretty incredible success stories, and what makes people successful or not successful also in many cases is obviously consistency, but their willingness to execute the whole strategy and not just pick and choose. Too
Mm.
often, they really like the idea of these two things, but not of these two things. And so, but that's not how it works, right? Like especially if you're a startup business, you got to do a lot of stuff to get it off the ground. I mean, when I started my gym, I was swinging kettlebells in the middle of the mall. I was going to skincare parties. I was at every business networking meeting I could make. I was in groups speaking, like all over the place. And I really created this omnipresence for myself and my market. And I think that that's really important to do, especially as you're getting started. And so you got to be willing to do the things that don't feel good or like feel a little bit uncomfortable. Obviously they need to be ethical, but yeah, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. And the people who are not willing to do that often will struggle, especially online as well.
Can you tell me about a time when you were forced outside of a comfort zone and in kind of this spot, and you had to kind of go beyond yourself, and maybe you didn't want to at first, or maybe you even hesitated a little bit, but then you were glad you did it in the end?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a million examples from back in the day, having my gym and all the things I did that I did not want to do. But but I think more recently, like I mentioned, I hosted just like an online interview series, a summit back in April, and I interviewed 21 fitness business experts for that. And honestly, I think the most uncomfortable thing that I have done, and this is all like personal stuff, it has nothing to do with anyone but like me, and not wanting to ask people for favors or help, was actually just approaching the people that I wanted to interview and saying, hey, would you be part of this and promote it for me? That was literally, I think, the hardest thing that I've done since starting this business, but it paid off. So I'm glad I did it.
Wow. Yeah.
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 So it was just that the reach out, and you're just were these people you were contacting just over email and saying, hey, it's time to.
Yeah, and almost all of them, I would say 70% of them, I already had like at least some type of pre-existing relationship with. Some were just very much acquaintances. Other people I had no issue reaching out to, but there were some, particularly people that I'd followed for a while in the industry, and I just felt like it's a really big deal for me to ask them to help me. I perceived it wrong, right? Like, because it was helpful for them
Yeah.
too. And I actually love participating in stuff like that, but I don't really like asking for help. So that was definitely really hard for me.
Well, but it echoes back to what you've created yet again, I think, online is now you have a brand in the same way where you've worked really hard to build these relationships one by one, and by really sharing yourself, who you are consistently on social media. And I think that's all the more impressive to do it, not batching and actually kind of really taking the time for it. And that's the same thing that you created, kind of working hard and hustling, building up these relationships to actually be
Mhm.
able to call upon these people. And I think that is one of the subtle and but very, very important resources of building like a real lasting business, or not even necessarily a business, but I feel like that's building kind of the entrepreneur that can and that drives the businesses.
Yeah.
So I think that again, just kind of bringing that all together to that story, really, really important stuff.
Thank you.
So um, let's see. Um, as far as keeping a lot of this, a lot of the work you are doing scalable, you mentioned you work with your clients to help them not run into kind of the dead ends with one-on-one coaching, but this is something you must have to do as well as a group coach in the business sense. Can you
Mhm.
tell me some of the ways that you've structured your coaching and your group coaching to kind of allow you a, a a higher quality of life rather than just being on calls or doing one-on-one all the time?
Yeah. So I think, most of us start one-on-one. I certainly did. I
Mm-hmm.
started with a combination of one-on-one and group coaching. And you quickly hit a ceiling with that. And even when you're like, oh, but if I have 20 clients and I talk to them twice a month, it's only 40 calls a month. That's not that much. Like it all adds up really fast. And so I did scale back on that eventually to the point now where I only do one-on-one coaching with my mastermind clients. So that's a much smaller group. But I also had to restructure my program as well. Like when my lead volume increased pretty dramatically, and I knew I could start filling programs every single month. I shifted again away from like I was initially offering like evergreen enrollment, meaning that people could enroll anytime in my program. But when I removed the one-to-one component from that, I decided to start more of like a cohort. So I started launching every month to every other month cohorts and filling those programs. And I just felt like I had a much better grasp on what was going on with each individual in that way, knowing that they were all in the same place in the program and just feeling like I was serving them even better than when I was doing one-to-one. Because again, they were all in the same place. I knew exactly what everyone was supposed to be working on. They were still getting support and feedback in a customized and individual way. But it was hard for me. Like that was a very hard decision to make because I thought, I attributed the value to my personal time, which, instead of the results, which is what people are ultimately paying for. So I shifted my mindset on that. And then I also started to believe that I could help people even better with a group format, an entirely group format. And I think that the client results that I've seen since shifting to that are definitely proof that it works. So it was just it was more me than anything else, and just making that decision.
I think some of those mindset shifts are really some of they're the biggest hinges that you can really uh, change your life and change your business and change, whatever is going on around. I think those are really, really important. Is there something you do to challenge yourself to get these mindset shifts or change your mind or educate yourself or improve
Yeah,
yourself?
I have business mentors myself that help me like talk through those processes, but also kind of hold me accountable to making those decisions, right? I think um, sometimes other people know what's better for us than we do in some cases. And then I also think that just having a coach at all times, at every stage of your business, someone who's done what you want to do and someone who's further ahead than you are is so critical. And really, I attribute that, like, that's my number one secret to success is that at every stage of business ownership I have ever had, I've had a business coach and mentor. And that's the game changer. And so when those mindset things come up, that's kind of where I turn to.
Brilliant.
Mhm.
I do the same, and often I've found in my experience, and often in many other people's experiences that have been shared, usually coaching is like upfront. It feels a little more expensive than it should, right in the beginning, and you have to, it like forces you to move forward and take a big leap of faith and do
Mhm.
things that you wouldn't just, I think, normally do if you hadn't made that uncomfortable investment up front.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I think like a coach should hold you to a higher standard than
I
you hold
was, yeah,
yourself to. And I also think that if you are a coach and you don't invest in having one yourself, that no one should pay you for coaching. That's like personal opinion, but why should someone pay you for coaching when you're not willing to invest in yourself?
That's
So.
a really, that's a really good aspect. And yeah, I think we should all, I think it's something that, that you should always have somebody helping you advance at least one front in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nicole, we've covered a whole range of different topics, different subjects, but a lot of really, really good information in here. Do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners, and where can we connect with you?
Yeah, I would say this is, it's such a simple and not sexy concept, but if you want to grow a brand through content, your consistency is everything. Your ability to show up every day, whether you want to or not, your ability to go above and beyond and provide value and to give away more than you could ever expect to receive in return, and to give without the fear that you're giving too much away. I think those are all the things that have led me to grow my business so quickly. And my most successful clients are implementing those same thought processes essentially, and just continuously showing up. So that's what I would say. I would say the best place to find me is actually on Facebook. I use my personal profile for building my brand. So Nicole Spencer, you should be able to find me there. If you want to find my website that I don't ever send anyone to, you can go to convertauthentically.com. And then that'll probably direct you to me on social media as well. But yeah, would love to connect.
Awesome, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us on the Story Engine podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.